It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to The Phil Ferguson Show. This is episode 476. Yeah, we're in December of 2023. Just a little note for anyone that happens to listen to the show and is a client of mine. There is the distinct possibility at some point in December, or even for a good part of January, if you look at your account, you may think, wow, there's more cash in here than there normally is. That is because most stocks pay the bulk of their dividends or their highest dividends in the fourth quarter, almost always in December. And so one of the things that I probably will be doing in December for most people, if you are close to the trigger point where I would normally go in and invest that money, I am going to hold off on that. So some people, normally I'm trying to keep the cash on hand below 2% and often averaging 0.7, 0.8, but sometimes it's 1.4, 1.5, and you might even be at 2% right now. And I might leave it alone because I know in a few weeks it might go from 2% to 4%. So I don't want to invest a little bit of the cash that's on hand now and then have to do it again in January. Yes, of course, this is a little easier for me, but it also saves you transaction costs. And with more funds to invest at one given time, I can possibly be more nuanced in where the money goes. So I think it works out better for you as an investor. So if you're looking at your portfolio and thinking it's time to do a rebalance, maybe give it a few more weeks, wait for things to settle out in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth days of January, and then that might be a time to do your adjustments. Keep in mind, just a general philosophy, you want to have a plan, you want to have a portfolio plan. One idea is the Polaris plan and how I lay things out there. You can do that. You can do your own plan. My plan may not be the right plan for you. Your plan might be better than what I've come up with. That's cool. What's really important is to have a plan. And then the next most important thing is to stick to your plan. Now, you can adjust your plan as time goes on, but you should have a plan. Having a plan in your investments is way better than no plan. However, I will say now, and I'll probably say this again in January when I get the final numbers, calendar year 2023 so far has gone up smartly. The S&P 500 is now up 18, 20%, depends on which day I'm looking at it, so it doesn't matter exactly what it is today. 2022 was a rough year, and for a lot of people, I didn't really increase their cushion if they're close or in retirement. In retirement, we generally don't increase the cushion unless there's some reason to do so. Generally, you're increasing the cushion 15 years out, 10 years out, 12 years out, until you get to retirement. Around January of 2024, of course, you could do this now, but it kind of defeats the purpose of what I was just talking about of when to invest cash. But in 2024, look at the items that you have. Hopefully, if you're listening, you have index funds. And of course, if you're listening, hopefully you have a plan. Look at the plan, look at your model, look at where you're supposed to be, and then look at the things that have done fantastic. I don't know off the top of my head, but hey, let me take a look. See, with that magic, I just paused and you don't know it, so shh, don't tell anybody. As an example, Vanguard Large Cap Growth Index Fund, VIGAX, which for several years I was overweighting in value and possibly resulted in slight underperformance for anyone that was following that philosophy. However, in calendar year 2022, that part of the market fell precipitously, 35-40%, and being light in that category worked out smashingly well. The end of last year or the very beginning of 23, I changed my ideal, the portfolio in my head, back to 50-50, growth versus value, and had to go and rebalance a lot of accounts. Made those suggestions for people who are playing along. Now, this year to date, again, the year's not quite over, but this fund, the Vanguard Large Cap Growth Index Fund, is up 40%. 40% in 12 months, less than 12 months. Absolutely fantastic. And almost what I expected. I didn't expect it would be in a year, but because that index fell 33% last year, if it just recovered to where it was 2 years ago, you could make 50%. Well, we just made 40%. I am not suggesting at this time that you reduce your percentage in Vanguard Growth Index Fund, Large Cap Growth Index Fund. I am suggesting that you take a look at it and see if it's now disproportionately large. If it is, there's something you should move money out of. Please always consider your tax consequences and put it into something that hasn't done as well, so your portfolio is in balance. If you are 15 years or less from retirement, you could consider selling 3, 5, 8% of that fund, depending on what puts it back in balance for you, and add that to your cushion. So you're creating a system or a process where you are selling high and hopefully buying low, the exact opposite of what most people do. And I have a segment coming up on that that talks about this topic, but just something to consider. If any one or two of the 12, 15, 18 index funds that you use has done really well in any given time period, like usually a year or two, consider rebalancing it. And if you're 15 years or less from retirement, might be a time to add to your cushion. I want to reiterate, because it's so easy for me to not be clear or to be misunderstood by somebody that's listening. I am not suggesting that you decrease your weightings of large cap growth versus other stock index funds. I am suggesting that either you rebalance or you rebalance and have a slight increase in your cushion. So if you start 15 years out and you want the cushion fully loaded at 5 years out, and let's say the right percentage of the cushion is 35% for you, over those 10 years, you should increase the cushion by about 3.5%. This year, maybe you can do a little more. You can do 4 or 5% shift towards the cushion. Again, nothing crazy. Okay, that's a lot, and we've got a lot coming up. So a lot of numbers, a lot of math, a lot of percentages, and probably all of them I go over way too quickly. My apologies. If there's a topic you want to hear about, you can always send me an email, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with the rest of the show. The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Investments should be based on your personal situation, and you, of course, should consult with your financial advisor or tax professional before taking any actions. Hey, it's time for church money. I'm going through some really old emails and trying to clean some things up, and I have this report, like a budget thing from a church. And let's see here. I don't know if I can say the name. So this comes from a listener, initials VC. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say even the name of the church. So I'm going to say it's the Anglican Parish of Christ Church. And the city appears to be, I'm just going to use the initials, EP. So if you are the person that sent this, you hopefully will notice this, but this has been a while. So it's out of date, but again, it's the whole idea. And of course, if you come across one of these documents, if you're in a church for some reason, maybe you go to church, Maybe you're there to vote. Maybe you're there for a wedding or a funeral or some other random reason, and you see on the table in the back or in the hallway or by the front door a budget or P&L or some document that talks about how much money the church has or doesn't have. Grab it and send it to me. And I can specifically call out the church or not call out the church. So in this case, we have a full year forecast. There's a bunch of different columns, of course, in one of these things. And this is for 22 into 23. So like I said, this is a while ago. For this church, the offerings are $698,000. So, pretty good chunk of money, not huge. Designated donations and fund transfers. Those are two very different categories put together, but it's almost $62,000. Bequests received $30,000. Endowment endowment trust and rectory trust fund income, $77,000. Okay, so I guess they have a portfolio or two somewhere. Government COVID-19 related grants. Now, that's some bullshit right there. $7,895 going to this very specific church as some kind of government aid from COVID-19. Complete bullshit. That shouldn't happen. A diocese grant of $15,500 and rental income. And so hopefully they're paying taxes on this because rental income is a business income. Whatever it is they're renting, some property, some houses. $36,000, by the way. Here are expenses. And I want you to listen very closely and figure out what part of this is going to the benefit of people in need, to the public, to a food bank, to people who can't pay their bills, that kind of stuff. Because a church is supposed to do those kind of things, right? So we have expenses. Personnel, $401,000. Okay. Facilities, $179,000. So we're almost up to $600,000. So 65%, 2/3 is going to personnel and facilities. And then it says office and administration. And let's see, that is another, I just moved my cursor here. Office and administration, $57,000. Worship committee, $16,000. Music committee, $38,000. Christian education, so Christian indoctrination, Sunday school teachers, preschool teachers. I don't know, it's not broken out for me. That is $45,000. Pastoral care, I'm assuming that helps the pastor or assistant pastor in some way, $3,000. Stewardship, $3,400. And hospitality, I'm guessing hospitality is donuts and shit and coffee in the morning, $6,500. Did any of that seem to you like helping out the local community? Pastoral care, no. Stewardship, maybe? I don't know. Hospitality, maybe? So somewhere between naught and 10 grand at maximum out of 900,000. So 1% optimistically is going to benefit the community, somewhere between 0 and 1%. So when people talk about, I give to charity, I give to my church, and my church does a lot to help the community. In this case, not so much. And then here's this fun thing. They had only spent $750 of the $900,000 that they brought in. And now there's another expense. They had total controllable expenses. And then this is another category. I guess these are uncontrollable expenses. You're going to have to pay it no matter what. The diocese, it's going to the diocese, apportionment. So this is what the church has to pay to the diocese, to the district, the region that they're in, $150,000. And so far it says surplus deficit prior to transfers. So they're bringing in or expect to bring in $925. They expect to spend $900, and they have $25,000 extra. But then past all of this, they have another category of money going out. And this is called transfers to other funds. So they're spending $17,000 to outreach. I don't know. Maybe that's where the charity is. But I don't know. It's going to a fund. So it's not being spent. It's going to another category. And property preservation fund, $40,000. I mean, it's good to set aside some money so that you can pay your bills. But those two things together are about $57,000. So now their surplus is not a surplus, it's a deficit because of the money they're sending out. They're short $31,000. And let's see, the operating surplus deficit beginning of year, which is a weird way to have this. I guess at the start of the year, they were already short $42,000. So their total operating deficit, that is, what's the word they used here? Forecast for the full year is short $74,000. And so they're putting some money aside, but they're putting money aside at creating some kind of current deficit. How they are paying their bills, I do not know. But this is an example of a church where I could not find clearly articulated where they're giving any money to help anybody other than people in the church. It's going to personnel and facilities, setting money aside for future facilities, different committees, and it looks like nothing to maybe 1%, maybe 2 or 3. I'm missing something somewhere, but it's not 5%, it's not 10%, it's not half. And so the big problem is that when you give money to a church, you're not really helping anyone other than the people that are hanging out and partying at the church. So if you like going there and you want to make sure the building is maintained and you want to make sure the people that are doing all the work to maintain the building and create the worship service, that they get paid, fine, give your money to the church. But do not tell me, as people have had in the past, that a large chunk of the money they give to a church goes to helping people in need. It doesn't. And at least maybe it's a selection bias. So if you know of a church where a large percentage of the money goes to people in need, send me that budget. Don't just tell me you know. You've got to send me the budget. I need some documents, because all the documents I get say that that's not the case. Money is not going to people in need. It's going to fund the building. It's going to fund the staff and pay for their wages and possibly benefits. And it pays for the copier and the paper and the ink. And it buys supplies for the music committee and the worship committee. Where's the money going to help the needy? Really, really sad and pathetic. But it's what I expect. It's what I almost always see. So here's a church with a $900,000 budget, $925,000, and virtually nothing goes to help anyone in need. So that is church money for today. And like I said at the beginning, if you see one of these documents in a church, grab a copy, take a photograph on your phone, whatever you got to do, and send it to me, and we'll talk about that church, or I can disguise the name, whatever makes you happy. Church money.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
From this distant vantage point, the earth might not seem of any particular interest. But for us, it's different. Consider again that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on the mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.
The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Investments should be based on your personal situation, and you, of course, should consult with your financial advisor or tax professional before taking any actions. This is a little mini update on a thing called meme stocks, M-E-M-E, meme stocks. The first two were GameStop, a retailer of used video games and equipment and maybe a little bit of online sales, which was doing horribly and the stock was in the toilet. And then AMC, the movie theater company, who is also suffering from fewer and fewer people going to see movies and collapsing and falling revenue. Well, I'm sure people have written entire books, and I'll leave it for you to do the research on that, of how this happened. The thing that I want to present is a reminder, an advisory, a warning. If you are investing in trendy things, you are possibly going to get your fingers burned. It to me is not really investing. You're not buying GameStop because, well, you weren't buying GameStop because you thought it was a good investment. And I think at its bottom, GameStop was $3 or $4. If you bought it at the very right moment and then wrote it and sold at the peak of $81.25, you made a lot of money. But what happens almost always with a lot of these things, there are a few people that get in first and promote the idea. And then as more people rush in, basic law of supply and demand, there's a limited supply of the shares. As the demand goes up, the price goes up. That's how it works in something like this. It's not because it's making more profits or it's going to make more profits in the future. It's really, I don't know, gambling, hedging. No, not hedging. I don't know, like a Ponzi scheme. It has more value because more people are throwing money into it, and that stops. And often what will happen is the vast majority of people paid prices that were vastly overinflated for what GameStop could ever possibly be worth. And again, the peak was $81.25 in 2021. Well, now today, the very end of 2023, that stock trades for around $17. And the vast majority of people that rushed in paid a price higher than that. The vast majority of people, and you know it's the vast majority of people because that's when the price is the highest. If no one was buying it, if there was no demand for it, the price would not have been that high. So most investors, most average investors, most small-time investors, pretty much anyone and everyone that ever listens to this show, you are likely to be one of the people that bought at a price and now it's worth a lower price, a loss of 79% off of the peak. AMC Theaters, just for reference, it peaked at a much higher price of $230.68 in 2021. And this is the kind of stuff that often people look at a higher price and they get more enticed by it. I'm going to segue here for an example that I give on a regular basis over the years. You're in a store and you see a sweater and you think to yourself, that's a really nice sweater. I might buy it, but gosh, it's $200 for that sweater. Now, it's a really nice sweater, mind you, but it's $200. And you look at your budget and you say, I just don't have $200 right now. Let me think about it and I'll come back if I still want to buy it, a little later. Well, what often happens is you forget. You got other things to do. The sweater wasn't really that important and you've forgotten about it. And a year later, you find yourself in that same store and there is that sweater. And now it's $500, so you buy it. No, nobody thinks that way. Well, almost nobody thinks that way about normal, tangible things that you can buy. If that sweater was marked $200 and now it's marked $500, do you rush to buy it? And maybe you're the person that does, right? Stocks, investments, meme stocks, cryptocurrencies, I had to bring that in here at some point. These all work the same way in the psychology of, dare I say it, investors or people who have money to buy something and then think of themselves as investors. So if you think a $200 sweater is a good deal at $500, cool. Good luck in the long term, because what's going to happen is you're going to keep buying things that are hot, that are trendy, that are popular, and you're going to keep getting burned. Back to AMC here real quickly. Like I said, the peak price was $230.68. It now trades around $7.50. So if you bought near the peak, you could have lost 97% of your money. Now, just for fun, one of the things I like to do is look at something from a different or multiple angles. So let's look at AMC stock for a moment. Of course, the peak was $230.68. I just said that. You lost 97% of your money if you bought it then and you still hold it today. But maybe you're thinking, well, that's a little overblown. And you wait for the price to fall to $150. So you bought nowhere near the peak of $230, but at $150. The price is still $7.50 today. And the result is still that you lost 95% of your money. Maybe you waited even longer and you waited for it to fall to $100. Well, of course, it's still $7.50 today. If you paid $100 for it and now it's worth $7.50, real easy math on this one, you've lost 92.5% of your money. If you waited until the price fell to $50, and you're looking at the chart and you're saying, wow, it was $230 and now it's $50. That's got to be a great deal. Does it? Does it? Because now it's $7.50 and you would have lost 85% of your money. So if you waited for the stock to fall by almost 75% from $230 to $50, and then you bought it at $50 and now it's $7.50, you still lost 85% of your money. And this is another way of looking at how I can make the claim that the vast majority of people that bought this stock at almost any price since 2021 have lost large amounts of money. Now, maybe you only put in $5,000. Maybe you only put in $1,000. And what people will often tell me, they'll say a phrase like, I only invest the money I can afford to lose. What the fuck is that? I don't get it. I don't know what that means. I have no amount of money that I can afford to lose. Now, I'm weird because I get freaked out by the cost of things sometimes that other people would spend money on. But of course, I make other choices. Like I went to Italy. So I bought $50,000 plus electric car. So I have places where I'm burning money, to be fair. But in investing, I don't. Investing, I'm using slow and steady wins the race. The tortoise versus the hare. You save a large percentage, 20% if you can do it, of what you make every year. And you do it year after year. You invest in everything. And if you own the total stock market index or a basket of index funds that basically make the entire U.S. stock market, you're going to have GameStop and AMC in there. And you're going to feel the pain of those in such a small way that you won't notice. But you also miss out on the chance of putting $10,000 on something that then goes up 3, 4, 5 times in price. But even big wins aren't going to be enough if you have a significant amount or even a small amount in something like GameStop or AMC when they eventually go back to where they need to be as far as a price. And what you can see if you look at the graph of the price of these meme stocks over time, the run-up in price is quick and powerful. And some people first in the game make a ton of money. You're not first in the game. You now hear about the price that's gone up and you rush in. Even if you got in relatively early, you have to get out relatively early. Otherwise, you lose your money. If you get in after the meme is starting to fade, you're going to lose a lot of money. A very large percentage of the money that you put in. And what you can see from these stocks is they go up and down and up and down and up and down, but the trend is down over years. I see no reason for that to change. I see no reason for GameStop or AMC to suddenly have bright and luminary financial futures. And it's the same thing for me with Bitcoin. I have gotten a few new renewed calls to tell people to buy Bitcoin because it's gone up. I don't even know what it is today, 40,000. And a few years ago, 7 years ago, it was 26, and then it fell, and then it peaked again, and then it fell, and now it's peaking again. Or is it a peak? I don't know. But if you thought, as you should have, as I suggested, that Bitcoin was not an investment when it was 10,000 or 15,000 or 20,000, when you now double the price, you're looking at this overpriced sweater, in my analogy. It doesn't make it more attractive because the price went up. I was watching CNBC, which I don't recommend that you do generally, but I was watching it and they had someone on and they said, how high does this have to go for you to be interested? And the person said, when it hits 100,000, I'm buying some. Why? If it's not a good investment now, why does 2.5 times the price make it a good investment? Anyway, just something to think about. Don't get suckered in by things that are popular, trendy, hot. It's not a reliable, predictable way to make money in the long run. Can you guess right here and there? Sure. Can you lose 85% of your money on something like AMC after the stock has fallen almost 75% from its peak? Yeah, you could put money in and still lose 85%. And when a stock goes to zero, it's a fun little math trick, it doesn't matter what you paid for the stock. If it goes to zero, the company files bankruptcy and can't pay the shareholders, does not matter what price you paid, no matter how big of a discount you think you got, you still lose 100% of that investment. So just things to think about. Stocks and stock investing is not for the weak of heart, which is why I use broadly diversified mutual funds, specifically index funds. And boy, I thought this would be like 3 minutes, but I'm going to take a pause. We'll listen to something funny, hopefully, and we'll get on with more stuff.
I'm not even an atheist. I'm what you might call an anti-theist. I think religion is a bad idea. I think it's a tool used by the powers that be to control the weak-minded in our society. But you can't pour that on a form, so I just write Church of England. I'm actually a lapsed Catholic. Any Catholics in? Oh, quite a few over there, yeah. I'm a lapsed Catholic. I knew my days were over in the Catholic Church when I found myself at communion thinking, I like the wine, I'm loving the wafer. Any chance of a bit of cheese? Don't get me wrong, though, I still respect the Pope. I like to think of the Pope as king of the pedos. He's the best one. He's the ringleader. He's Gary Glitter's boss. Catholics are a weird bunch. Look at the rosary. Basically, anal beads. I saw a documentary recently on Channel 4. It was all about faith. And in it, someone went, well, of course, Scientology is a made-up religion. I thought, as opposed to... It's one of my favourite things is to get Christians talking about Scientology. Because the Christian will go, Scientologists, they're nutters, they believe in aliens. And then you can say to the Christian, what do you believe in again? It's a benevolent zombie that's coming back to save you, isn't it? Good luck with that, that will probably happen.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
All right, everybody, welcome back. I have with me Rob Palmer, and we were just discussing pre-show, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, all the crazy and wacky things that he's involved in. And as he was describing to me, I'm like, oh, just stop describing it to me, because you can describe it to me when we are recording, and now we're recording. So, Rob, welcome to the Phil Ferguson Show. How are you today?
I am just great. Thanks so much for having me back on.
And we're going to talk about a bunch of different things, and maybe even random things, and maybe we talk more about vacation and languages. That's fine. We just don't want to spend too much time like we just did, but that's cool. I do know that recently at CSICon, what is that? Center for Skeptical Inquiry Con?
the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry.
See, now...
The CSI, right? That's the organization that puts the conference on. So the Committee for Skeptical Inquiries Conference, CSICon.
Yeah, it's not your problem to fix, but I hate all the names that they have always come up with over the years. But that's another topic. Why can't it just be one thing? But
so are you talking about the original name, which was PsyCop?
Well, there's PsyCop, there's CFI, there's CSI. There's
right. So CFI is the parent organization of CSI,
right?
As well as other
See,
things.
and who knows that? I mean, it's just like when Pepsi comes out with a new flavor, it's Diet Pepsi, it's Pepsi Clear, it's Pepsi Free, it's Pepsi Light, because the name Pepsi is everything. So, in my mind, everything should be CFI. CFI the magazine, CFI the conference, CFI this, and didn't they just come up with something for kids?
Especially because CFI and CSI, the C is for a different thing in both, and the I is for a different thing in both, which is just awkward.
I also have this problem with Rotary. I don't think we ever talked about this, but Rotary is global, this service organization. It's massive, and it has one of the highest name recognition branding names in the entire world, Rotary. And when they have Rotary at high school, there's high school clubs, they call it Interact. Why? Why would you do that? You should use Rotary High School. And they have one in colleges and universities, and they have a different name, which I can't even remember. And I am a Rotarian. It should be Rotary University, right? Because you have this incredibly strong name. And I think the same thing for CFI. Everything should be CFI. And then if you want to add words to it, that's cool, but it should be CFI conference, not CSI, especially like you said, when the C and the I mean two different things in both contexts.
Actually, the I doesn't. I just wrote it down and I said, oh, why did I think that? No, it's so Center for Inquiry and the Committee for
Skeptical Inquiry.
So that is the same word. But the C really bugs it up. And then, as you said, the magazine is not, CSI magazine. It is Skeptical Inquirer, which, by the way, I've heard that's kind of redundant, those two words together. But
well, well, it is like an unskeptical Christian. Well, wait, I that's redundant. But you did at the CSI conference just a few months ago in Las Vegas, which is always a delight. So many great friends. You had a Sunday paper, which is very cool.
I did.
And
that was so much fun.
As
my fourth in a row. It is a world record, I will say.
I was going to say my shameless plug that I also did a Sunday paper many years ago.
Was it TAM or Psychon?
Actually, you're right. It was TAM. It was the Amazing Meeting, which is the similar but technically unrelated event that no longer takes place in the same city and the same hotels, and with a lot of the same speakers and guests and moderator.
Except, of course, James Randi.
Yeah. But you had a paper, and it was on, where was it? I had it here. Well, just tell me, because I have you. It was psychotropic something? Psychogenic.
But no cigar. So my I think clever name for it was Cuban ray guns, schoolgirl poisonings, and monkey men. Oh my.
Yeah.
And it was all about basically social panics, mass psychogenic illness, that sort of thing, with a high concentration on the first line there, Cuban ray guns.
I was going to say,
is Havana syndrome.
Give us one of the four, and I was going to suggest that one. So talk to me about Havana, oh la la.
Have you ever been there?
I have, actually. I was not allowed as a tourist, but we went with a cruise out of that was sponsored by the Central Florida Free Thought Community, which, by the way, everybody, has another cruise coming up in February. But several years ago, we went on that cruise with the Central Florida Free Thought Community, and we went to Havana not as tourists because it was not allowed. We went as cultural attaches. Talking about.
So was this in how long ago?
5 or it had to be 6 years. It was before Trump because the Republicans made even that not allowed generally. But we got off the boat, and when you get off the boat and you drop into Havana, holy fuck. Third world country right off the bat, complete chaos, buildings falling down, their own unique shitty currency that you can't trade back into dollars apparently, and people begging you on the street. The streets alternate from gravel to pothole. That's the two main textures. Really, really amazingly destitute people. Yes, I've been to Havana. Short answer to your question.
Man. So, and you were lucky because you were there before they had developed this new technology of a sonic or microwave weapon and were, hitting people with it.
Allegedly.
Right. So that's the whole thing. If people don't know, the claims have been since just after you got there. Apparently,
yeah.
I think it started in late 2016. That thousands of U.S. government employees and their family members, in some cases, in Cuba first, and then later all around the world, even spreading to claims that happened behind the White House gates, were attacked and afflicted with a long list of injuries, including brain damage, which was supposedly confirmed over 7-ish years, I think it is now, by energy weapons of some sort, which physicists say they don't exist and they couldn't do what you said they did.
Yeah. Well, the question, of course, that anyone who's been documented with brain damage, did they have that before the alleged claim?
That's the really sad part of this. A lot of what fueled it, what kicked it off was what happens in a lot of these cases. You have like a patient zero. Somebody gets sick and they attribute it to something, and then it gets reported to other people. In this case, they heard this odd noise. They recorded it and, in fact, sent it in to the State Department. And the State Department took about 1.5 years to analyze it. They gave it to all these tech people, and they analyzed the spectrum and the frequency and how much it repeated. And they came, well, it could be this kind of thing, could be this kind of thing. Well, finally, entomologists, bug doctors.
Yeah.
I always get those two words confused.
I think you got it.
Got a hold of it, and it was the native cricket to that area, which is always making that noise. But But meanwhile, that sound was sent out, but it was recorded, sent in, and then the government sent it to everyone in the area. Listen for the sound. If you have any medical issues, it's probably because they reported to us. So that's what happens. Like the first guy maybe had tinnitus, my understanding from people now who've explored this. And then other people had all sorts of things, and they attributed it to that sound, which very quickly it was determined that no, if a sonic weapon exists, it can't do what you're saying it did.
Yeah.
And then, well, maybe it's microwaves, maybe it's pulsed EM, and all of that went around for 6+ years. A horrible situation where people were thinking they were getting sick from this specific thing. And it's two things. One is the nocebo effect, right, which is the opposite of the placebo effect. Somebody gives you rat poison, says, here, drink this, it's rat poison. Well, drink this, you drink it, what was that? It's rat poison. You might start throwing up, although it was just water.
Yeah.
Right. That's the nocebo effect. And the other thing is called reframing, which is what I was talking about before. You hear something funny in your ears, you get dizzy, even you faint, and now, I heard a noise before that. I reframe it as, that's what caused this.
Yeah, humans are really good at making connections and or finding things in the chaos, just like pareidolia or audio pareidolia, where people will record ghosts, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, in these haunted houses, anomaly hunting. So it's a genuine problem, and that's good fun. Is that something where people can go find the speech or the talk and see it?
In fact, there is. Do you have a way to put links on your show notes?
If I wasn't really lame, I might put it on there. But tell us in general, what do we search for?
All right, let me see. I have that. I actually have my talk, which had it in it where I played it. Mm-hmm.
Yep. This makes great radio. I'll just stall while you're looking for it.
All right. So my stuff is on Linktree, which is a service where you make a web page, right? And it's linktr.ee. I have no idea why they had to do that. They put a period in the middle of the word Linktree.
I don't know.
And then it's / the well-known skeptic.
The well-known skeptic.
The well-known skeptic. And that's my page, which has everything I've done on it. And you could go to my talks link right there, and you could search for the talk on this subject. So I'm doing that right now, and the talks I have given, the first thing there is Cuban ray guns, schoolgirl poisonings, and monkey men. Oh my, it is my PsyCon presentation. And then I gave a longer version of the presentation remotely to the Baltimore Ethical Society, and you could look that up. The link is right below it. That one, the PsyCon limits you, and it's very hard, Phil, when you get on that stage, as you may know from TAM. 15, 20 minutes.
Well, you really got to hone it. But go ahead and send me the link. I'll try my best to put it in the notes.
Okay, when we're done, I will do that.
Yeah, and of course, we were talking earlier in the pre-show. You don't have a podcast, is that correct?
I do not have a personal podcast. But I have become the, I'll say, unofficial, official interviewer for the conference, of which you don't like the name, PsyCon. So Susan Gerbeck had made a habit for many years of doing text-based interviews of the speakers that were coming up in the months leading up to the conference, and publishing those in text articles on the online media at the Skeptical Inquirer website. 1 year she kind of got busy with other stuff, and I took over a few of those for her, including John Delancey, which she didn't know who he was. So I said, I'll take that one. And I got to fanboy out interviewing Q from Star Trek. And then the next year, someone suggested, instead of taking all the time to transcribe all of your interview stuff into text, why don't you just release the video? So I asked for permission to do that. Kenny Biddle had started to do his Closer Look, debunking of ghosts and stuff
and
like
of course,
that.
see, this follows the theme. Yet another name, right?
Kenny Biddle.
No. Kenny's great, but I mean, Closer Look. It should be like CFI taking a closer look or something, right? So, because how does Closer Look have to deal with CSI or
he's taking a closer look at the
it's not a bad name, but you got to have the big branding, CFI, a closer look, Oh, and you got a cat giving you a closer look. So
Oh man.
so these
When I was so to pick that up, I started doing video interviews for the SciCon 2022, and I did 12 people who were going to be speakers. Some of I would ask for the list in advance who's coming to the conference.
yeah.
And I would ask Barry Carr, who organizes it all, to give me the contact information for the ones I would pick out that I had the most interest in, or I thought might be the most interest to viewers. And I got to interview for that first year people like Penn Jillette, which I was amazed he said yes, and Neil deGrasse freaking Tyson. I got to talk to that man for about an hour and a half. That was quite amazing. So I am so happy I got to do this. I get my own private audience with all these people and ask them any question I want. They liked it, so this year they let me do it again. So right before the conference, I did 12 other people, including Teller, who a lot of people don't think speaks. He just speaks very quietly.
Yeah.
And
Psychically.
and Bill Nye. I got Bill Nye to do it.
And where do I find all these cool videos?
You can go to my link tree, and it's the first link, which says, actually the first link says see my online articles. So you can go there, and actually every time I do a video, I write a little short synopsis of it with other links in it too, and the videos embedded in it. So you can find them in my online articles, or the second thing on that page is video interviews for Skeptical Inquirer.
Video interviews for Skeptical Inquirer. Is it on YouTube? See, now look at this. Oh, I've just found you on YouTube from 4 weeks ago. I don't want it to play. There, we had to stop it. Rob Palmer, CSICon 2023 Sunday Papers.
Such a great time being able to interview the speakers, in advance of the conference. And then I started to also do, when it's kind of in between time, just a conversation with, and you name the person. I've had people on there who are podcasters from, all different things that might interest skeptics. The last one I did was with Brian Dunning on his movie, the UFO movie They Don't Want You to See.
Yeah, which is fun.
We talked all about that. That was fascinating.
Maybe you could name your show something like Closer Look, but you could say A Deeper View, just to use different words.
Kenny might not like it.
Oh, my goodness. And so we have all that. And, of course, you're a participant in, you're not the organizer of, I don't think, with the Guerrilla Skepticism.
Oh, yes. That's Susan Gerbic, the very famous Susan Gerbic, who has so much on her plate. She's actually traveling the world right now. She went to 2 conferences in a row in New Zealand and then Australia. I think it just ended, the one in Australia. Yeah, one weekend after the other. And
nice.
She is like sort of the official ambassador for NCSI to promote the organization, to gin up the skeptic movement, get people interested again, because the pandemic took a lot of wind out of the sails. And yes, she also does the Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia project, which we have talked about in a previous episode. I think that was back in, let me see, November 19, I think. Yes,
well, that's okay, because I do want you, because people can go back and listen to it, of course. But what is it?
So the Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia project was something dreamed up by Susan when she was on a cruise before she actually got involved in skepticism. And I think it was Tim Farley, who people might know who that is, was on that cruise. And he mentioned, wow, Wikipedia is like so important. I wish we had some way to modify that. And that put the little idea in her head. And she started to make changes and, got slapped on the wrist because she was doing it wrong, which is what happens when you don't know what you're doing on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And then she took the time to learn to do it right. And then it got other skeptics involved to the point where she created an organization, the Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia project. And there's 100 or so rotating people. People come in, they get tired, they leave, we get new people. But it's a great organization to join. We're volunteers who modify Wikipedia. We are all taught by Susan. She's got, still her hand is in the pie. That to that degree, she's the instructor. She's come up with the tutorials. You go into this area on Facebook called the GSOW, Secret Cabal, where the experienced editors help you out, so you can ask questions. People will look at your work and suggest improvements. And after you're trained, you're set free to do whatever you want, and you will be a very efficient Wikipedia editor.
And of course, the purpose of this, just to make sure the listeners understand, as an example, if there is a page on homeopathy and how it works, someone could go in there and edit and say, there's no foundation to support the idea that this works. These are unfounded claims, seeking references, blah, 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 and add in actual factual information. Is that correct?
Yes. So the thing with Wikipedia, it has developed over the years since it was created into a very structured operation. In the old days, you can make a page about anything and it probably would have lasted. In fact, I know people who did that way back 20 years ago. But now it's more serious. There are editors watching all the pages, especially the pages of significance like science topics or history topics, medical stuff. So, you can't go in and just put anything you want on it. And there are rules about the sources that the material needs to come from. It has to be properly cited. But nevertheless, fringe topics and alternative medicine, as you mentioned, homeopathy, like you get proponents of that going on the page and trying to add stuff. Oh, no, this shit is real because it worked on me. And here's some lone guy who wrote a paper that says it works. Well, that might not be a Wikipedia reliable source. So if we come across that, we would remove it and we would put the scientific analysis that, it's BS.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's fantastic. I don't know if I talked to you about this. I had a Wikipedia page for Phil Ferguson. Did you know that?
I did. You mentioned that last time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I was very, very happy to have that page for a couple hours.
Yeah.
We need to readdress that. I'm famous, right? I'm noteworthy.
Kenny Biddle, who is now the chief investigator for CSI, that is his exact title. He doesn't have a page, and we tried several times to put one up before he got that title, and he still had done a ton of. He was interviewed in Popular Science. I think it was even the New York Times, things like that, and it wasn't enough to make him quote unquote notable. So Wikipedia's got these very stringent rules on notability for living people. And some would say it's not fair, me included, because it depends what you do, right? If you're a soccer player and have gone on the field for one official game and kicked a ball once, you probably have a Wikipedia page and it's legitimate. If you're a singer and released one CD, you probably have a page. You could be a scientist, academic, skeptic who's, very active, does all these important things, and there's a different set of rules, and you're just not notable.
Wow. Oh my God. And now you're giving me ideas. I could make a song. It would not be good. It would not be listenable to.
Well, this is the point. You have to have enough media review that song and say it's the most atrocious piece of music that has ever been written by a human being. And that would make that, at least the song would get a page and you'd be noticed on it. I'm not sure if you'd get your own page.
Because I'm sure Spinal Tap has a page, right? So.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, people have come to me and ask skeptics and say, oh, what would I do to get a page? And, well, you could kill somebody in a really odd fashion so it makes a lot of news.
Yeah, that
they decline that. So.
I actually, despite my wife's insistence, I have a filter because that was the first idea that I had, but I didn't say that, and I would never say that out loud. So then I thought the music might.
You murder somebody in a way that makes a lot of news, you're going to get a page.
Yeah, that's not what I'm.
You come up with these fantastic ideas, a way to educate people in the sciences and communication. You're interviewed on skeptical podcasts on it. You do talks at conferences. Sorry, not enough.
Wow. Of course. We're having great fun, and we could probably talk all day, and the listeners don't even know we talked for an hour before we started talking. Is there anything about what's going on in your world that we want to cover now before we wrap up? Because I don't want to take all day of your time.
Let's see. Well, so the other thing I don't think I've talked about is my work with recovering from religion.
Yeah, talk to me.
So, yeah, I became a volunteer for this very important organization back when the pandemic started, and I had some time. And my cat is not going to let me continue to talk now.
That's all good.
Can you hit pause?
A few moments later, we now have Rob back after his cat crisis. You fed the cat? Is that what happened?
Oh, I have the most needy cat.
Yeah,
in the world.
Cats can be like that. And of course, you were telling us really wickedly important stuff. So just kind of pick up where you were and tell us about it.
Yeah, so when the pandemic started, I had some free time on my hands because I retired from my aerospace career. And I had known about this organization called Recovering from Religion and decided, oh, maybe I could help people who are suffering from having religious trauma syndrome, people who've, struggling leaving their religion or having doubts.
Right.
So I stepped up and I volunteered. And I would love for other people, after you hear this, to go to their main page, recoveringfromreligion.org, and hit the volunteer tab at the top if it's appropriate for you, because we always need people. So what we do is we have a helpline where people can call in and hear from empathetic people who are trained to do this sort of thing. It's peer support. All right, we're not therapists on this line, so we get trained in how to do this. We also have support groups, which are run by people trained by Recovering from Religion to do that. They meet on a biweekly basis, I think. Sometimes it's like every other month, twice a month or once a month. But we have 60 of them, so there are 30 that go on in any particular time month. We have an online community that people can join and chat to each other about similar issues. We actually have a therapist project where we have actual psychotherapists called the Secular Therapy Project. You can find that on our main page as well if you need that level of support. And we have a new thing which I got involved in. This also started pretty much when the pandemic thing and everybody was locked down with nowhere to go. We started to use Zoom, and we created a weekly meeting where we invite guests on every Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And they tell us about themselves, and we ask them, we interview them, or they give a presentation. I believe you might have been one of those at one point, Phil. Is that correct?
Indeed. I know I was probably within the last year. I've been on a distant past, but within the last year. And I've also had other spokespeople, board members of Recovering from Religion on over the years, because I think it's a phenomenal organization. So if you're listening to this show and you're thinking, man, I just don't know if I can believe this stuff anymore, how do I talk to somebody? Recovering from Religion might be the option for you. And Rob, as you said, not trained therapists, but just someone you can talk to. If you do need a trained therapist, if it's really messing with you, like you cannot get over the fear of death and going to hell, even though you don't believe it, well, then you can learn more about the therapist project.
Secular Therapy Project.
Wow.
STP, we call it.
Another name. Secular Therapy Project, therapist project. But that's all.
And the thing, and you were on, as you said, I have given talks because we have people talking about all sorts of topics.
Yeah.
Having to do with atheism, religion, critical thinking. I've done 3 or 4 talks on critical thinking and logical fallacies.
Right.
Tonight's guest, you won't be able to, playing this, but on the date we're recording this, it's going to be none other than Seth Andrews, who's done talks before.
So when they're hearing this, they could go to the RFR, Recovering from Religion page, and find
that is correct
the interview
YouTube
with Seth Andrews.
That's right. We record them. There's about at this point 150 or so there now.
Wow,
including Matt Dillahunty. Yes, and Seth has spoken in the past. Dave Warnock, people you might hear on shows like The Atheist Experience. We have talks about religions that the details. Somebody who's left the religion that many people might not know the details of. We talk about that. A lot of it's about the problems of purity culture, which is in fact what Seth is talking about tonight. The organization was founded by Dr. Darrell Ray, who's a psychologist, who's written books on the subject of the damage that religion does to human sexuality. As you know, he's written other books too, so he's talked on that subject numerous times. Anyway, it's a fascinating thing. You can find it on our main site. It's one of the main buttons on the main page, recoveringfromreligion.org. It says RFRX Talks. And again, you can either go to the live talk or you can take a look at our YouTube playlist, which is, if you click to go to the RFRX Talks page, at the very top of that page, it says, see our YouTube playlist. We make it easy for you.
And of course, you can watch videos, you can get help, you can find someone to talk to, you can donate money, you can volunteer, all that stuff, all important things, because I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, but you think the world would be a better place if we had fewer people stuck in religion and believing things that
Well,
weren't true.
so one of the things I do want to make clear is we don't try to deconvert people. That's one of our,
Right. An official stance of RFR.
Right. We're not an atheist organization.
Yeah.
As an official stance. We don't try to deconvert. We meet people where they are. We help people on their journey. I mean, I had one client just pissed at their own pastor, and they wanted me to help them find another church to go to, and we do that. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny minority of people who call. Most people, as you're inferring, are either out the door and they have major problems they want our help with,
Right.
or they're first considering, well, this doesn't make sense.
But I think it's important that someone who's not necessarily leaving religion but just having trouble with it and wants someone to talk to, they can go there. It is not a place where people get talked out of the religion like would happen if they talked to me.
or let's say if you call the atheist experience.
Right. Exactly. Right. So, I mean, different groups and people have different goals and agendas, and RFR is not necessarily my agenda, but, I share a lot in common with their goals and their intents.
You absolutely do, which is why we had you on as a guest.
Yeah. So, Rob, thank you so much for being on the Phil Ferguson Show. It's been a great delight. And I appreciate you coming on and talking to the guests, or talking to my listeners.
Thank you so much for having me on again. It's been great.
Now, that was some amazing content, and I hope you think so as well. Things you can do for me to help me out is go leave a 5-star review somewhere, or share this podcast with a friend of yours. That always helps spread the show so more people can learn not only about investments and investment scams, but how religion works and why, in my opinion, it's a net negative to our survivability, the probability of our survival as a species. Just a fun little, I'm going to paraphrase an email that I got from somebody that said, hey, I was talking to a friend of mine and we happened to be talking about investments. And I suggested, hey, you should listen to the Phil Ferguson Show. And the person they were talking to said, hey, I already listened to the Phil Ferguson Show. You should listen to it. And the first person, of course, said, I listened to it. That's why I recommended it. So that's kind of cool. That was very, very flattering to hear that two people were recommending to each other that they should listen to the Phil Ferguson Show. And another quick email, and not about Polaris, because that would be a testimonial of some kind. This is about the podcast and the information that's provided here. Email, I'll just use the initials TZ, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't want to read it, but basically it says, thank you for helping me in the past. I've made more money because of the things that you have taught me. This is not a client, and they're not recommending that you be a client. They're just thankful that they heard some valuable information on the podcast. And they say that they wish that more younger people, especially people with low income, could learn this stuff and how many lives it would change. And of course, then there's some other stuff that I don't want to get into, but they're not saying anything about Polaris. Just to be clear, not a testimonial for the business. They're talking about the information in the podcast about how to invest and how to not do poorly, how not to get tricked with investments. Because if you can just own the whole market or the sections of the whole market and add money every year, this works. I know it works. I've seen it work. I have people that have become millionaires over the years. It's not easy necessarily. It takes some work, some discipline, and it takes knowing some things about how things work. Like earlier in the show, if you need to take money out for something else, where do you take it from? How do you know where to take it from? You need to know how all this stuff works. Anyway, I didn't want the end to go on forever. So thank you for listening. Leave a 5-star review. Send me an email if you want me to cover a topic that you haven't heard and you think you would like to hear about it, or maybe you think others would be interested in it. And I'm just going to wrap up here, and I do hope to see you out there on the road sometime soon. Until then, ciao.
It's the kids in magic underwear. Latter-day pimps, motherfucker. Let me tell you a story about my man Joe Smith. He's the founder of our posse that you just can't fuck with. Wrote a little book called The Bible Part 2. Book of Mormon, bitch, preached by me and my crew. Mormon for JJ, that's my kryptonite. Spread the word all day, spreading pussy all night. CT all blinked out, ring so sick. Choose the right, got it tatted on my dick. Rolling our bikes in your neighborhood. Spit religion jocking bitches, yo, we're up to no good. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's the kids in magic underwear. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's the kids in magic underwear. Knock, knock.
Welcome, brother.
It's the kids in magic underwear. Knock, knock.
Good afternoon.
It's the kids in magic motherfucking underwear. Break these motherfuckers off, Elder Gooch.
Okay, I'm gonna try my best.
Christ rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Tithing to the church, y'all.
Call me Elder Nasty, cause it's written on my back. Gotta wait for my wedding night to penetrate the bag. I'm a virgin like a daiquiri. I'll charm you with my flattery. I'll give you my last name, and you'll be my baby factory. Wife 1, wife 2, wife 3, wife 4. My ass is on a mission to wed a couple more. Streets of Utah's where I got my education. Hardest missionary in the LDS nation. Scripture on my hip like a load of Mac 10. Peeling caps back with the fiction within. We're the leaders of the pack, and you know that for a fact. Gonna run America, cause Romney's got my back. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's the kids in magic underwear. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's the kids in magic underwear. Knock, knock.
Who is it?
It's the kids in magic underwear. Knock, knock.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
It's the kids in magic motherfucking underwear.
Big ups to the Angel Moroni.
I can't wait to get our own planet. Let's go spread the word.
I'll get our bike helmets.
Peace, we're out of here.